ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 17, text number 18. प्रजापतिर्नाम तयोरकार्षेत् या प्राक् स्वदेहाद्यमयोरजायत तं वै हिरण्यकशिपुं विदुः प्रजा यं तं हिरण्याक्षम् असुता साग्रतः। Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Kashyapa Prajapati, the creator of the living entities, gave his twin sons their names. The one who was born first he named Hiranyaksha, and the one who was first conceived by Diti he named Hiranyakashipu. Purport. There is an authoritative Vedic literature called Pinda Siddhi, in which the scientific understanding of pregnancy is very nicely described. It is stated that when the male secretion enters the menstrual flux in the uterus in 2 successive drops, the mother develops 2 embryos in her womb, and she brings forth twins in a reverse order, so that in which they were first conceived, the child conceived first is born later, the one conceived later is brought forth first. The first child conceived in the womb lives behind the second child. So when birth takes place, the second child appears first and the first child appears second. In this case, it is understood that Hiranyaksha, the second child conceived, was delivered first, whereas Hiranyakashipu, the child who was behind him, having been conceived first, was born second. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So here in this verse, Kashyapa Muni, who begot 2 sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So it's being described that how the one who was conceived first by Diti was named Hiranyakashipu, and the one who was conceived later was named Hiranyaksha. And Prabhupada in the purport mentions that the complete science behind pregnancy, how the child is conceived, and in case there are twins, like we read in the purport, complete and clear understanding about which child is conceived first and which one takes birth first. Unlike some people's belief that our scriptures are very primitive and all mythological, maybe written by some primitive sages, unlike that, our scriptures are very scientific. There's a person whom I know who was agnostic. He never believed in God or forget about our scriptures. And his father was quite a staunch believer, used to worship Lord in his house, do his pujas. And in his house there was also this Bhagavatam. And this child was brilliant. He eventually became a doctor, and all along he had been thinking that this Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, these are all some Rishi Muni, somebody would have written. And in medical science, when you do MBBS, you go through different courses where you understand all this pregnancy, how the child takes birth, what is the various stages in the development of the fetus, what happens in the first month, what happens in the second month, what happens in the 3rd month, up till the 9th month. Complete description is given, and more so it is possible for present day doctors to find out all the details because of the modern day gadgets. You have different kinds of scanning machines. CT scan, MRI scans, various scanning machines are there whereby you can very precisely measure or can find out what's happening as far as the fetus is concerned. So one day, out of curiosity, just to find out what the Bhagavatam is all about, he opened the Bhagavatam and he landed up in those pages where the pregnancy, the development of fetus was described. And it was during that time in his course he was also studying about the fetal development. And he was surprised, he was later on telling that he was surprised to find out that it exactly tallies with what the modern science is saying. And that is in the recent years because of all the technological innovations and the latest gadgets and the scanning machines. How did so-called quote-unquote primitive sages, hypothetically believing that these are all creations of some sages who are living in some forest and, cut off from the quote-unquote real world, how did they figure out all this? Not only that, the description of our universe. In fact, what we know of this universe, what we know of this world is very minuscule. Even forget about whether we believe in science, we believe in scriptures, keep all aside. Even using common sense, if we analyze the size of this planet Earth or this country in which we are living, or this state or this city, compared to the size of the universe, which according to science, based on their observations, which they have verified or quote unquote quantified, it's a small speck. Even in this universe, there are billions of stars as big as sun, each of them having its own family of planets. And all this form a Milky Way, the galaxy called the Milky Way, and like that there are billions of galaxies. So what we know of this universe, only out of pride, only when we are deluded, bewildered by illusory energy, we can say that, we can confidently say, my understanding of the world is perfect. Otherwise, even if somebody is humble and he uses common sense, one will be open-minded, will be not very rigid about his views in terms of who is the creator. Some so-called learned scientists very confidently propound their theories. Again, Maya Parita Jnana, Krishna says, they may be intelligent, Maya has stolen away their intelligence. So our scriptures here, very nicely they are describing and how it tallies with the present day understanding. Sometimes we may say it may not tally with what the present day science is. It's quite possible that just like there was a time when science said that the earth is flat, but all along our scriptures say Bhugol. Gol means Brahmanda, Anda. So there could be, since we are students of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all authorized scriptures, sometimes we may also get bewildered when we may hear something which according to scientists is contradicting what is mentioned here in the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. But we should have confidence that these scriptures are apaurushaya, they are not man-made. Tene Brahma Hidaye Adi Kavaye, this knowledge is given by the Lord and it is not subject to the four defects. The four defects are, we all have cheating propensity, we have limited sense perception, we commit mistakes and we are subject to illusion. Recently in the newspapers you would have read about a very big car maker company, Volkswagen. Millions and millions of cars worldwide. We're talking about cheating propensity. They, so to say, installed a software which faked or so-called cheated the emission testing process, because each cars have to subject to emission tests and all that. And in millions, now they have filed a suit, that company, and the damages worth $19 billion. So cheating propensity, it can be at that scale. One of the best brand in the market, millions of cars being sold all over the world, and the brains behind that car, they want to cheat. So can happen with the scientists. There's a book written by some of the devotees called Forbidden Archaeology. How many of the so-called facts which emerge when the scientists are trying to probe or trying to find out the truth, or some evidences which come up, how they have been set aside if they don't tally with the propound theories, the present day theories. They've deliberately put under the carpet. So that way we can understand that with these inherent four defects, the world which we are living, the knowledge which is being taught, is also contaminated with these defects. Sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. So here it is being nicely described that how this is a science. In fact, there's a Vedic literature called Pinda Siddhi, where the scientific understanding of pregnancy is very nicely described. Like we mentioned in one of the earlier discussions, that how the Vedic wisdom, the Vedic knowledge, the Vedas is not only about God. It's a body of knowledge which deals with every aspect of human existence, including defending. There is scripture which talks about weaponry, defense. There are scriptures which talk about Ayurveda, how to keep the body hale and healthy. It's a body of knowledge. And today why Ayurveda is becoming popular, because seeing various kinds of side effects and this thing of the modern medicine, you find that how it's more reasonable, or rather more better to have holistic, to subscribe to holistic medicine or holistic lifestyle. So here we see that how Jaya Vijaya, being cursed, they are taking birth as twins to Prajapati Kashyapa. And in continuation to what we discussed in my previous, we had touched upon that how, just like Jaya Vijaya are devotees of the Lord, and not ordinary devotees. To be doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, personal attendance to the Lord, it's not an ordinary thing. And we see that how Jaya Vijaya committed a mistake and how they were cursed. And because of that, they had to take birth as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha here. So as devotees, we can also have some important lessons from this pastime. We may be very nicely situated. When we see people around us, when we see people outside practicing Krishna consciousness, various kind of struggles, we may see that yes, we are far more favorably situated. We are staying in the association of devotees. We have an opportunity to engage full time in the service of the Lord. We have an opportunity to every day get up in the morning, attend Mangalarti, attend Bhagavatam class, all the program. It's a good fortune. For somebody who is trying to practice Krishna consciousness outside, even to get an opportunity like this, it's not easy. Even so-called many initiated devotees, maximum sometimes the pressures of life or the jobs are so high that even if one is able to complete 16 rounds, it's a big deal. So to get 5 hours, 6 hours of time where we can focus completely on remembering the Lord, chanting His holy names, attending aratis, doing various kinds of spiritual activities, it's a big luxury. So we are in this situation, but we cannot be complacent. We cannot take it for granted. Just like Jaya Vijaya. This material world is, Prabhupada says, practicing spiritual life is like walking on a razor's edge. Then Prabhupada describes razor's edge means small in attention and there is blood. Although these days razors have improved, we don't see much blood because everything is, but a typical barber razor which they use, I mean, if we see many times we get cuts also. So, small in attention and it's blood. Same is the case in the spiritual life. Grossly and subtly. Grossly could be somebody could lose devotional service. He can go out of company of association of devotees. That's gross. Even subtle fall down can happen. Small mistake and your good consciousness which we had is gone. We are back to material consciousness, material calculations, material worries, material anxieties. After good morning sadhana, we are, so to say, propelled, the consciousness is propelled into higher dimension. Our thinking is, quote unquote, we experience bliss, our thoughts are sublime, and we make a blunder, small blunder, moments inattention. Krishna bhuliya jiva bhoga vancha kare, nikatastha maya tare jhapatiya dhare. Jhapatiya, it's not something which happens, nikatastha, maya is there, right there. Jhapatiya dhare. Jhapati means it pounds on you. So that way we cannot be complacent. Just like Jaya Vijaya, they were not arrogant, they were not, so to say, just they came, the Kumaras came, a mistake happened and they got cursed, and see what they're going through. Born as demons. No doubt we have to have a rider that it's all the pastime of the Lord. So even during Prabhupada's time, many devotees, when they were practicing Krishna consciousness, unfortunately were trapped by Maya. So Prabhupada says, regarding Damodar's plight, Damodara was a devotee, we are very sorry, but we must always expect that some of the weak soldiers may fall down in a fight waged against the great Maya external energy of Krishna. So spiritual life is fighting a battle between, on one side is Maya, the allurement of Maya, the other side is Krishna. Right now we haven't got the taste. We are more attracted to the illusory energy of the Lord. Bhoga Ishwarya Prasakta Anam, Taya Parita Chetasam, that's our present state. Why do we get attracted to Maya, or the illusory display of Maya, the variegatedness in this material world? Because we all are Amsha of the Lord and our constitutional position is Sat Chit Ananda. We are blissful. There is a sense of permanence because we are the Atma which is eternal. There is no fear of death. We are eternal because we are blissfully Amsha of the Lord which is eternal. There is no fear of death. Chit and full knowledge. Knowledge about our constitutional position, knowledge about we being Amsha of the Lord and Lord being our protector, fearless, Abhaya. That's our constitutional position, that's what we are meant to experience. But see our present state now, Asat, always fearful, fearful of death, various kinds of insecurities, various kinds of fears, various kinds of ignorance, so much body of knowledge, so much research is happening because we are finding that because of various kinds of limitations, ignorance, various kinds of agyan, ignorance, we are not in control of things. Various diseases torment us because we don't have knowledge how to counter those diseases. So, Achit and Nirananda. We are not happy. So, what Maya does is when the Jiva, Krishna Bhulya Jiva Bhoga Vancha Kare, when Jiva wants to enjoy minus Krishna, Ichcha Dvesha Samuthena Dvanda Mohena Bharata. First thing Maya does is pulls Krishna, pulls the living entity's attention from Krishna's domain, thinking of Krishna, consciousness of Krishna, understanding that I am Amsha of Krishna, I am meant for pleasure of Krishna. It pulls that understanding, covers that understanding. Maya has two aspects, covering potency and bewildering. Avanatmika and Prakshapatmika Shakti. So first it covers that real knowledge, real understanding that we are meant for pleasure of Krishna, we are Amsha of Krishna. It covers that knowledge, pulls our attention from that domain, Krishna's domain, and the next step is takes that attention and puts in illusory variegatedness, which is a perverted reflection of variegatedness in the spiritual world. In present time we see lot of lot of allurements, various sense objects, everything looks real. That's why in spite of we wanting not to gratify our senses, helplessly we get pulled, because the attraction is real. That is Maya, takes that attention and puts it in the variegatedness, which is perverted reflection, so to say, replica of the original pleasure in the spiritual world. That original pleasure is replicated, but in a perverted way. It is illusion, just like water and a mirage. So all along we see in this world, you tell somebody who does not have this understanding or who has not practiced spiritual life that there is no happiness in the world, they will feel that you are crazy. Or you will feel that, why are you unnecessarily depriving yourself of happiness? What's wrong in being happy? What's wrong in enjoying life? It doesn't make sense to them. Because we all are meant for enjoyment. That's the constitutional position, you cannot deny. Even spirituality doesn't deny happiness. Anandamayo bhyasat. And the other side, we say don't enjoy. When we get this spiritual understanding, we understand that yes, enjoyment is not denied, but there is illusory enjoyment which we are getting cheated with. Maya is cheating us with illusory enjoyment, but we are entitled for real enjoyment. So when we have come to spiritual life, there is always a battle. On one side we have allurement of Maya, the enjoyment which appears very real, which is very glaring, and we have taste for that, we are bewildered, bhogaishwarya prasaktana, our intelligence, real intelligence has been stolen. The other side is real enjoyment for which we have no taste. We have no faith. It's mythology. Krishna is mythology, spiritual world is mythology. So here it is said, and Maya's greatest weapon is the sex desire, attraction to the opposite sex. So we cannot expect that all our soldiers, some of the soldiers may fall down in fight waged against the great Maya external energy of Krishna. The sex attraction is very great in the material world, but in the spiritual world it is different. So sex attraction, it's there even in the spiritual world. What we see here, opposite sex in the forms, it's a replica. From Srimad Bhagavatam we know that the opposite sex, namely the female members of the Vaikuntha, are many, many times more beautiful than they are in the heavenly planets. We all heard of Apsaras, and the hips and attractive smiles cannot stimulate sex urge, passion of the man or male devotees. In Vaikuntha also they are great. Like here says, female members of Vaikuntha. But the attractive smiles cannot stimulate. Why it cannot stimulate? Because that jiva who is there in the spiritual world is experiencing real Sat Chit Ananda. There is no requirement for sending out your tentacles to derive Sat Chit Ananda from external sources. In relationship with the Lord, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke, the jiva is experiencing completeness. Today we are having a deficit of Sat, Chit and Ananda. And because of that deficit, we are having hope that I'll get here, I'll get here, I'll get there. That's why the whole material existence is to bridge the gap of the deficit using various material arrangements. But they cannot stimulate sex urge, passion of the man or male devotees. In the Vaikuntha planet, the opulence is very great, yet they all engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Sometimes people say that spiritual life means we should not be amidst opulence. In Vaikuntha, so much of opulence is there, but they are not bewildered. Bhogaishwarya prasakta anam, because they are connected to the Lord, they are conscious of the Lord. It is very difficult to conquer over the influence of Maya, but one who is firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness, when we are fixed in Krishna consciousness, the deficit of Satchitananda proportionately comes down. The more and more we are Krishna conscious, the more and more we are situated in our constitutional position of being Sat, Chit, Ananda. But who is firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness cannot be victim of Maya. Anyway, we cannot stop our fighting with Maya. Now, the present state is we are not Krishna conscious. We are allured by Maya. We are practicing sadhana bhakti. And while we are not pure, we are engaging in various preaching activities. Meeting various people, dabbling with various things. Anyway, we cannot stop our fighting with Maya. Neither we can expect that all our soldiers will remain unhurt. It's a fight. Fight with Maya. And Maya is very powerful. Mama Maya Dhuratteya. So in that sense we cannot be complacent. Anytime we cannot be complacent. Anytime Maya can overpower us. But that does not mean that we should live in a state of fear or uncertainty. If we are taking the medicine, if we are following the process, Srila Prabhupada many places mentions Avashya Rakshive Krishna I Vishwasa Palana. Although Maya may be very strong, but if we have taken strong shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, following the process diligently, then Maya cannot harm us. You know, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu was killed in the battle in which Bhishma Deva was party. Fight Krishna's cause sincerely and you will be glorified with victory. Devotees generally don't fall down, but if circumstantially they do, the Lord, because of their strong attachment to Him, gives them protection in all circumstances. So, there's a very nice balance. On one side, we have to be very cautious. We have to be alert. We cannot be complacent. Other side, we should not be leading a life out of fear, anxiety. Sometimes devotees have this thing, what is a guarantee that I will be safe? So better let me secure myself now or do now. What if I fall down in future? These kind of thoughts can cross. Chitraketu fell down and became a demon, but he too was protected. Thus, even if one falls down from the path of Bhakti Yoga, one is ultimately saved. So there is no harm. One who is interested in his own salvation is not. Now somebody may go to the other extreme that I will not take any risk. Going out, meeting people, we see all kinds of billboards, it's all very risky. Or preaching, sometimes we have to deal with Matajis, it's very risky. So somebody can say, okay, nothing doing all this. So one who is interested in his own salvation, yes, one can be very self-centered, concerned only about his salvation, his spiritual advancement. But that's not the mission of Prabhupada. One who is interested in his own salvation is not as advanced in Krishna consciousness as one who feels compassion for others and who therefore propagates the Krishna consciousness movement. Such an advanced devotee will never fall down, for Krishna will give him special protection. We are today standing not because of our own spiritual strength, because Prabhupada, one more place says, Lord Chaitanya promises, because we have to do so much managerial work to propagate this Krishna consciousness movement, Lord Chaitanya promises that we will not fall down. So that protection of the Acharyas, that protection of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, protection of Krishna is there with us. Yes, if we make blunders, very grossly, don't follow their instructions, take all kinds of risk, then we are helpless. That is the sum and substance of this Krishna consciousness movement. It is my duty to deliver you the right things in right earnestness, and it's the duty of the receiver to act on the standard spiritual regulation. When you left us, I simply prayed to Krishna for your return to Krishna consciousness because that was my duty. Prabhupada is writing. Any good soul who approaches me once for spiritual enlightenment is supposed to be depending on my responsibility to get him back to Krishna, back to home. When we take initiation, it's a very serious commitment. On one side, we promise to follow the regulative principles. The other side, the spiritual master takes the responsibility to deliver the disciple. The disciple may misunderstand a bona fide spiritual master. So under pressure of Maya's influence, sometimes we misunderstand spiritual master. We may not have faith in his instructions. Again, it's because of Maya's influence. But a bona fide spiritual master never let go of a devotee once accepted. Even a disciple misunderstands a bona fide spiritual master. The master regrets for his inability to protect the disciple, and sometimes he cries with tears in the eyes. So right now we are not able to see that battle. We are not able to see how we are overpowered by Maya. We are not able to see the tricks of Maya. But spiritual master can easily see that, because he is not in illusion. So when he sees that the Maya has taken away some of his disciples or tricked some of his disciples, he feels very sorry. We had an experience while my Guru Maharaj was alive. One of his disciples who had accepted sannyas was one day forcibly dragged by his wife. My Guru Maharaj lamented with tears in his eyes, saying that he could not save the soul. So this is sum and substance, that on one side we are practicing spiritual life. It's a war on Maya. Maya is very powerful. But if we somehow pray to the Lord, stick on to His lotus feet, follow the process given by the acharyas diligently, then their protection is guaranteed. And if we are protected by them, if we have their blessings, just like Prabhupada says, it's my responsibility It's a dual thing. One side, we have to follow the principles, we have to obey the instructions. The other side, the spiritual master takes the responsibility. So if we do that, then we don't have to have fear. We can practice the spiritual life, and in due course of time, the influence of Maya, the allurements which we fall prey to, will subside. In a conditioned state, sometimes we say, I am very lusty. Actually, the soul is not lusty. Conditioning means Maya has covered the real knowledge, and helplessly we are getting attracted to Maya. The whole spiritual process is to undo that conditioning and revive our constitutional, original, pure consciousness. It cannot happen overnight. Till such time we will get attracted. Till such time there will be habitual responses to sense objects. There will be some occasional fall downs. Just like Krishna says, you have the right to do your duty, you're not entitled to the results of your activities. We have to see, am I taking the medicine sincerely? Am I following the process diligently? We may sometimes even break the regulative principles helplessly. That's a result. That's an outcome. Sometimes we get very disappointed and depressed. Still Maya is attacking me. Still I am falling down. It will happen. Only check we should be, am I taking the medicine sincerely? Am I seriously following the process? Or am I doing some short circuits? Am I, just like today we read, am I partially following the process? Just like you go to a doctor, the doctor says, take this course for 10 days, you take for 1 day and you say, leave it, enough. So if we are following the process, even though we may be overpowered by Maya, we come in illusion, we fall down occasionally, we should get up, have courage, have conviction that Prabhupada is with us. If we follow his instructions, he will protect me. Avashya Rakshibe Krishna, E Vishwasa. We don't have to live in fear and anxiety. Nor we should go to the other extreme of being complacent. So it's right balance. If we do that, we can practice the spiritual life and come out of this illusion. Stop here. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.